to kind of, get around that lobbying, it's more like sharing their stories and just providing that education, giving them a space to share what would be most impactful for them in their communities and their journeys.
Holly Russ secured grant writing and funding, and we have got Payton Murphy on the podcast today. Payton's in the Academy. So excited that you're on the podcast today because, like I said, I was like, oh my gosh, you are killing it in there. Girl, over $4 million in grants? Over $17,000 you made in the last few months. I was like, you got to come on and let me know what, all of the different things that you would like to share with folks in the Academy. And we want to really highlight what you're doing in your business. So welcome to the podcast, Payton.
Thank you, Holly. And thank you so much for having me. This is like totally a full circle moment for me because I was introduced to you through this podcast. So I'm very excited to be here today.
Oh, I love that. I did not know that. Oh, that's cool. Oh, that's so good. So what was it? Do you remember what episode or like why or someone was like, you gotta listen to this? You're like,
I honestly have been trying to think of that and I can't remember exactly how I found it, but I've listened to like every episode since. So I'm very caught up.
You're like, I got it. Oh, that's so fun. I love it. I've had other people too that have come on. They're like, oh my gosh, same thing. They're like, I found you through the podcast and now I'm on it. This is so weird.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. So, yeah, so tell us, you're also the founder and CEO of Payton Murphy Grant Services, and people can definitely find you on LinkedIn. We have you, so we'll have all of the links in the show notes, all of the things, but tell us like how you got into, because you're a freelance grant writer. So how did you get into grant writing? And then what types of grant or nonprofits do you focus on serving?
Yeah, so I got into grant writing a little over 4 years ago now. I started as, and still currently am doing in-house grant writing. My educational background is in criminology and psychology. So those are kind of my interest areas. And, like when I was graduating, finishing my master's, I didn't really have a specific career path that I wanted to take. I knew I loved researching. I loved writing. I loved working with like social justice, equity, and community building work, but the exact job title wasn't coming to me. So in kind of my job search journey, I came across a grant writer position and I had honestly not heard of that job before. And I'm, reading through the bullet points and I was kind of like, wow, this is like hitting all of those interest areas and skill sets. And the rest is history. I applied for the job. I got that job. And yeah, have been working. So that job was with a mental health nonprofit organization, more direct service, local community-based work. And then now I'm doing in-house grant writing for a larger criminal justice reform advocacy organization. So more kind of policy and systems change work. So in my in-house experience, I've kind of spanned, from direct service to more policy work, and then also like have written so many different types of grants across city, county, state, federal, foundation, and of different sizes. So I feel like kind of in my in-house journey, I've really built up a great skill set, but I'm kind of always looking for that next challenge. And so I think a year ago, the idea of freelancing and consulting started to kind of come to me. But I was honestly really intimidated by it. I didn't know how to start, how to do it on my own. So I started subcontracting for a former mentor for a little while. And then I had some nonprofits reaching out to me. So I was kind of doing like sporadic one-off jobs, feeling excited, but a little overwhelmed. And that's, when I found your podcast is kind of researching how am I going to do this? Can I do this? And I remember kind of sitting on the fence for a while and just being like, oh, do I make this investment in myself? Like, am I going to be able to do it? It took me a few months to kind of get there. And I just one day finally said to myself, like, you're going to be in this limbo state forever unless you just like try. And so that's when I joined the Freelance Grant Writer Academy. And honestly, it has been so transformational for me. I joined in the beginning of the year. Yeah. Like early February, I think. And just in the last few months, I've really like formalized my consulting work. And I'm still doing my in-house job, but doing the consulting work on the side. And it just feels like I'm more valued for my work and my time and kind of all of the skills and background and experience that I have. I'm feeling valued for it now because I know I know the language, I know how to charge. I have a group of people that's there to help me. So yeah, joining the academy is really kind of what kickstarted this freelancing experience for me. And I'm like really excited to see how it grows from here.
Oh, I love that so much. And yeah, I didn't realize that you're like, okay, so, going into this, and did you have any clients before you came in the academy? Or,
Yeah,
yeah.
I had a couple, but I didn't have the language of like a retainer or a package. So I was doing these really kind of sporadic one-off jobs. They would sometimes give me a week before the grant was due, and I really didn't know how to set boundaries, I think was the big thing. And I like kind of owning a business is never something I thought I would do. And so I think I lacked a lot of those types of skills. And that's what has like really been beneficial for me in the academy is how I can articulate the value of my services, how I find clients, how I conduct a discovery sales call, how I price my services. Like all of that was very new to me before joining the academy.
Oh, I love that so much that now, yeah. So, I bet there's a lot of people out there that are like nodding their heads, like if they thought about, if they, even someone came to them on the side, if they have a full time, but they're like, can you write this grant? We know you write this grant. They're like, ooh, that extra money, but it's like a week before it's due. It's before it's due. That happens all the time. So we really do have a lot of language in the academy about how to create those boundaries that are ethical as well for both sides, right? So I love that you're like tapping into that. And then, so since then, you've obviously been able to make money in your business as well. So do you feel like with those discovery calls, with now having a system for all of the things and building out more retainer or project-based types of services, that you're able to make more income in your business as well?
100%. Yeah, that has been huge for me. I think, yeah, like a big area of growth has been using the modules in the academy and the templates that Holly provides to like you said, yeah, really set up those systems and processes. And it's saved me time on the back end, and then also my forward facing materials are stronger. I can explain them better. I feel less overwhelmed in calls, and I feel like, yeah, it's really just, I think the biggest point is it's really helped me articulate the value of the services, which is something I could not do before. And so I would give discounts, or I would feel nervous to say a price. And so I think, yeah, going through those modules and using the templates has really helped with that, especially in the discovery calls.
I love that so much, because that's just a part of your identity now as a business owner, right? Total shift. That is a legacy for life. Like now that you know that, you're never going to lose that skill of how to value your services, right? And how to, so that's so good. I'm so glad to, and then yeah, $17,000, like your investment is totally like, whatever, I don't even know how to multiply that, but $2,500 investment, and now you got $17,000 within a couple of months. Like amazing to see that result in your business so quickly, just by, really doing some of the processes, right? Is that basically, did
Yeah,
it take?
totally.
Yeah.
And I think the mindset work too for me was like huge, because I had a lot of those limiting beliefs where I was like, I don't have a big network. How am I going to get clients? Or like, they're never going to pay me this amount. And so I think like working through the modules and like really understanding my why, like why consulting is the right step for me, like why I'm doing this work. And then, also my who of like, who are these ideal clients? Who am I trying to reach? Who do I want to serve? And I think that helped me really like challenge and change those limiting beliefs. And that has been like transformational for me, not only in like my consulting work, but in my in-house grant writing job, and just generally in how I kind of talk about myself or like go through the day. It's been really helpful to, not hear those limiting thoughts all the time.
I love that. Oh my gosh, that makes me, that makes me cry. Like I love to see that much of a transformation, because I know how it's been for me and for so many people. And so I love hearing it, because it's huge. You are changing your worth and your value in a lot of ways too, on a very fundamental level. I feel like when we are entrepreneurs, we have to face, like you're talking about, those self-limiting beliefs, and why do I even think that way or feel that way? Is that really true? And when we go, that's not really true. It's just those thoughts are trying to keep me safe, but they're not keeping me safe, right? They're holding me back from like really being able to step into who I am. So that's so cool. I love that. I love that so much. So good. So when you're looking in for the academy as well, like if somebody's like similar to you, like I've been asking this question a lot, but they're in a job still, they may have gotten a couple of clients. They're on the fence though. Should I invest, $2,500? It's not just like lunch money either. I totally, that's valid, but like what would you say to them if they're really serious about stepping into their business?
Yeah, I think like, first of all, validating their feelings, because, I had those same feelings, and like, it can be really scary, and like, it's like it's an investment in yourself, which can sometimes be harder than, and an investment in someone else or an item or something different. So it's totally like normal to feel like that. And I think sometimes though, it's important to just do it. Like, you don't know what you can do unless you try. And like, literally in the first week of joining the academy, it was wild. Like, it was a total, like, I opened myself up to these opportunities and like believed that I could do it. And I had 2 nonprofits reach out to me in like the first week. And, before joining the academy, I probably would have been like so overwhelmed. I don't know how to respond to them, but I was immediately able to like take that, put it in the Slack channel, bring it to a coaching call, and be like, okay, how do I go about this? Like, what do I say to them? And so I think just like the value and the resources of the academy like really speak for themselves. So like, while it's an investment, like, it's definitely worth it. And like we mentioned earlier, like, I not only have seen like a return on my investment monetarily within literally the first 2 months, but also just in like so many different areas. Like, I feel like my grant writing is better. We talked about like the limiting beliefs and mindset stuff. And so I think it's just a matter of like, sometimes you have to take that risk and just invest in yourself and believe in yourself. And, it doesn't mean that you have to stop working full time right away. Like, for me right now, I'm trying it out. I'm seeing like what success I can get from it. And, if this is a good path for me. And so I think, it doesn't also have to be so definite of like, ending one thing and starting a new thing. It can be like trying something at the same time.
Yeah, not an either or. It can be an and, right? Like, so, and I love how you're doing that. It's like, okay, I'm going to try this out. And, coming up with a plan of like, if I was to transition fully, what would I need to have in my bank account? What would I need to have set up with clients? What do I need to have in my business? Like all of the things, right? And we help kind of work through that. And also another thing I noted that, you were talking about was how you're showing up to your job was different now just from going through this process. And because a lot of what we say is start looking at your job like a client, even if they're paying you salary, even if nothing has changed, like verbally with you, with them, you start to consider them a client. Was that helpful in how you've felt more valued now at your work?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's helped me kind of reframe some of the conversations I have with colleagues or coworkers and think about it more from like a business mindset of like, would a business owner tolerate this? Or, how would I respond as a business owner? Like, just kind of putting that lens on. And it's helped me communicate more effectively, I think, because I've seen like, I've done some of that work of like why I'm doing grant writing, why I'm interested in these different subject areas. So it's helped me like communicate to people too, why certain parts of a grant are important, or like why this meeting you have to come to, like all the just different parts of your day-to-day job. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, and it is like that reframe. So I'm so glad that you're able to do that. And even if you're like, you know what, I would stay with this job and keep the freelancing on the side, like that's totally an option too, right? But I'm so glad you feel more valued in your work, because so many grant writers don't, and because they're not creating boundaries, right? So you can still create boundaries within your 9 to 5. But so many people just have never done it. We don't have those skills. We don't learn that in school. We don't, you know what I mean? So, and especially as women and in nonprofits where it's, oh, isn't that like the labor of love? And it's like, well, yeah, it's a labor of love, but I still got to pay my bills and I still want to spend time with my family. And, I'm not just, it doesn't mean I'm not dedicated if I'm not doing my job, right? So how has that been helpful? Have you seen those kind of transformations as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think even in writing out a contract for one of my new clients and like in my consulting work and putting in there, like, I need this much lead up time before I take on a foundation or a federal grant or whatever it is. and being like, trying to think creatively, okay, how can I institute this in my full-time work as well? Where like, it's not every day I'm writing a contract and telling the rest of the company, but like what are ways I can bring that in? How can I kind of share this knowledge with other people on my team too, where it's like, hey, in the consulting world, we require this much lead up time. Like, is there something we can do to kind of work that into our schedule here? And so it's just kind of finding ways to like take the best parts of both and kind of create this one more like equitable and job where you feel more valued.
Oh, I love that so much. Yeah, and because it is. And how are you looking though? Are you looking at potentially like what's your goal? Is it transitioning? Is it just like, I'm just gonna see how this goes for like a year? Like, like what is what's your goal with that? Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's such a good question. I don't know that I've like fully fleshed out an answer to that yet. I think like right now I'm kind of seeing where it goes, but seeing the potential of the consulting work is like really tempting. Because you're your own boss. It's all of the freedom and flexibility that we talk about, but also like just the cap on a job. Like they can only pay you so much. There's only so much there. Like, and in consulting it's different. It's like you can have more contracts, you can bring on subcontractors, there's more flexibility and more like income potential. And so I live in the San Francisco Bay Area. It's very expensive to live here, so I'm always kind of trying to think creatively. And I think one day I do see myself doing consulting full time. I think right now I'm still like working through like, can I do this, how much would it take, still like believing in myself and my abilities. But I definitely think that it's important for people to keep both options open. I mean, grant writing is such a great skill and you can really do it in both contexts. And so, it's feeling out what works best for you, your family, your needs. And like, feel like you can go back and forth too. Like it might change at different points in your life. And so it's that having that skill set though is like so powerful because you can take it in so many different directions.
Yeah.
And so that's something I've learned over the last few years is like, I'm really happy I fell into this kind of field because it is a very, very valuable skill in different contexts. So,
yeah. And I love that because it absolutely is. It's like, a lot of people, there's different skills. And I was even talking to my friend recently and she was like, oh, grant writing seems interesting, but social media marketing seems fun. Like copywriting seems fun. She was like, and I was like, well, those are great too. And I know a little bit about those industries, but what I know about is with grants is it's not going to go out of style anytime soon. And it's not saturated. Like social media marketing, like that shit is like, it's very saturated right now. But with grant writing, it's going to take a long time before if it ever gets saturated. So there's also that piece. And there's that skill, which is nonprofits know they need it. Governments know that they need grant writers, like all of the things. And to your point, it's something you can do independently. It's also something you can do in jobs. We've had people in the academy actually get promoted because they have the grant writing skills or they're starting to win grants. They've been able to move laterally and get raises, right, as well, into 9 to 5s laterally. So that's been really, really cool. And to know though, but what we like to also teach, because we do teach the grant writing skills, but the other skill that you're saying that's also transforming your life and all the things, right, is the skill of sales, right? And that's a skill that a lot of people just don't know. So we really say we have our skill of grant writing and sales, because when you have those two, and we teach ethical sales, right? So when you have that, then you can start creating boundaries in different areas, and that skill can apply to your job too, or to your freelance business, right? So it's really interesting, isn't it, to say, oh, wow, we can double down on these two skills. And then you have, like you said, the world is your oyster, right? Like there's opportunities out there for that. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And that's something coming into the academy too. I wasn't necessarily as concerned about like the hard grant writing skills. Of course, I'm always looking for opportunities to like improve those, but it was really like the business fundamentals, and not just business in general, but grant writing and grant consulting business fundamentals, because, there's other mentorships you can be in, general business owners, but it's not specific to nonprofits or grant writing or strategic planning or board trainings, or like the different skills that people in the academy or services that people in the academy offer. And so I think that was something too, that was like really a big pull for me, is like, I need these like sales skills, these business skills. And if I'm needing to learn them, why not learn them in a hyper specific environment, like focused on grants? Like it just makes the most sense. So I think, like you're saying, both of those skills are really important. And I think like in the academy, it's like does a really good job of having a equal amount of both, and like how they kind of connect and work together.
Yeah, I love that so much, because you could come in, not even touch our grant writing program, but build up your businesses. You already got like your skills, and a lot of people come in 20 years of grant writing experience, 10 years of grant writing experience, etc. But some of them too, like you said, well, I still improve my grants because they're using the unlimited grant reviews, because why not, right? Like, why not use that? So I love that. And then also, talking about the business skills too, so good, right? Like to know, and for that specifically, because there is, like you said, there's a lot of coaching programs out there that talk about business in general. But I love that you were like, okay, but I need to be very specific on this niche that I'm interested in. And even in that, some people might be like, isn't that niche down too much? And it's like, oh, no. We got freelance grant writers in there, federal grants, grant readiness, foundation grants, different cause areas, but having similar potential challenges or questions that are very specific to our niche. Because even in our nonprofit ethical sales system, how we do sales with nonprofits would be very different than how you would learn to do sales with for-profit, right? So can you speak to any of like how it's been so specific and helpful to your business with that specificity?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think too, and I think this is in the ethical nonprofit sales module, but talking about like really helping the nonprofit to understand the grant writing process. And, they might be asking for discounts just because that's what they have been used to. And so it's like educating and informing them on kind of the value of grant writing and like the life cycle of a grant. It's not just we submit this application, we get this money and we move on. It's like really relationship based. And so the value of having a consultant potentially on retainer to help with existing grants and steward funders and build those relationships. And so I think that's one of the areas that the like sales strategies, it's really helped me, because being able to like explain that to them feels better than just being like, here's a page of my prices and like this is what it is. It's like, no, like this is why these are important, and this is why I would recommend this service for you over that service. And so it's really given like tools and language to kind of articulate the value, which feels less like salesy when you're going into the calls.
Yeah, because that can feel, I know a lot, especially grant writers, like coming from these nonprofits, like even sales almost feels like a bad word. It almost seems like, oh, shouldn't it be like an, donation or whatever? And it's like, isn't that? And so we're taking away that negative connotation to be like, no, this is an ethical way of having a conversation to be able to really help them. So if you want to, charge $1,000, like how much can you really do for them? Right? Like we have to look at the full process and what the nonprofit's really looking at going with their nonprofit, the mission they want to drive forward, how much funding would that really take, and how we can help them create, articulate program design and all of that to get them there. And then how long we need to work with them to really get them there, right? And have the expectations real on both sides, right? And to let them know that education is a huge part of our sales strategy, right? To let them. So I love that so much. So once again, let us know, remind us again, what are all of the specific nonprofits, cause areas, that sort of thing that's in your unique industry concept, those services that you offer?
Yeah, so I have, like I said before, have experience with like smaller local nonprofits and larger policy work. And through that, have really found that I like working with more local community-based nonprofits. I've kind of traveled a lot and lived in a bunch of different places. And so every time I'm in a community, I really like to learn about like the strengths and the challenges and the needs of that community and really kind of dive into that story. And so I like to work with like smaller local nonprofits. And then the focus areas that I'm most passionate about are like mental health, housing and homelessness, and like youth and early childhood development. And I think I enjoy also working with nonprofits that have kind of those wraparound services where they're serving a couple different needs in the community. Because it's really interesting to see how it all comes together and how it addresses kind of multiple needs within the community rather than just focusing kind of on one specific avenue. So yeah, I think, yeah, mental health, youth and early childhood youth and early childhood development, and housing and homelessness have been my main focus areas.
Yeah, and those are very intersectional, right? All of those really do wrap around well together. Like even I could see mental health serving a lot of those different populations, right, within that. So that's fantastic. And then of course people can find you. So where can people find out if like, oh, I'm in the even if they're not in San Francisco area, the Bay Area, but they can definitely hire you online. But even if they are, they might be like, whoa, I really want to talk to you. So where can they find out how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on LinkedIn. It's just Payton Murphy. And then also feel free to send me an email. I love chatting with people. My email is pmgrantservices@gmail.com.
Perfect. And we'll have all of those links in the show notes. And just a quick question too, before we close out, like I'm really interested in your policy work too. So could you say also working with nonprofits, there is one thing like the lobbying, you know what I mean? All of that. So, but there's still a lot of policy work that nonprofits can do, right? So can you just speak to that for a minute? Because I think that's so interesting. Like before we close out, like if a nonprofit is like, I am interested in getting in policy, but I'm a little bit scared because of the incorporation kind of issues. Like, can you speak on that a minute?
Yeah, definitely. I think a lot of the work I work in policy work in my in-house writing job. And so I think a lot of the work that we do centers around organizing and bringing grassroots, local community nonprofits into the conversation. So just this week, I was at an event at Sacramento at the state capitol, and we do events with crime survivors, and we bring them to the state capitol to have their voices heard. They go on legislative visits and speak with different representatives. And just share their stories. And so I think, a lot of that policy work can center around education and bringing impacted people, whatever the issue area you're advocating for is, into the mix, and letting their voices be heard. So to kind of, get around that lobbying, it's more like sharing their stories and just providing that education and, giving them a space to share what would be most impactful for them in their communities and their journeys.
I love that so much. Yeah. And awareness, education, like even just changing a word sometimes, right, can be helpful, but also not, we don't want to devalue the word either, right, with that sort of thing. But yeah, I love that you're doing that, because a lot of, even personally, the nonprofits I work with, right, where there's a lot of advocacy work as well. I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and that's kind of like going back and forth, like, should this be a 501c3? Should it be a 501c6? Like, you know what I mean? Like looking at the different ways too of how much do we want to advocate versus educate, and all of the things, right? And where's the gray line? So, and that's unfortunate that that's even there, but you know what I mean? But it is something to look at. So definitely, if you guys are in that space, and I know a lot of you listening out there are, definitely contact Peyton, because she is an expert in knowing all of those things about lobbying and the incorporation and all of the things. So that it really is important, because we are seeing a lot of that, especially we're getting near election season, right? So we are seeing more of that. Like there are a lot more grassroots movement to advocate, right? But then they also want to get grant money, and they're kind of like, where do we go from here? So that's something people. Would you like them to contact you for that? Is that all right?
Yes, definitely. Feel free.
Perfect. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Peyton, for coming on today. Once again, I just want to celebrate like $17,000 in your business within a couple of months, over $4 million, almost $4.5 million in grants secured. Like, you are doing amazing work. So I'm so glad that you invested in yourself, because now look at all what you're putting back into the world. Like, amazing. So I just want to say that, yeah. Congratulations.
Yes, definitely. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah. And I'll see you back inside the academy.
Yes.
All right. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, Holly. Bye.